Hey everybody, welcome live to the Jim Masters Show, Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show Series. I'm your host, Jim Masters. It's great to see you and to have you joining us here at JMS Levity Hall as we broadcast around the world with incredible guests as we bring back the Lost Art of Conversation. Joining us on this extraordinary episode. Hey, if you love animation and cartoons and music and you love Hanna-Barbera and Disney and all of it, the Jetsons, Mickey Mouse, Tom and Jerry. I mean, I know we're bringing us back to our childhoods, right? All of it. We have an aficionado. We have somebody who's spent decades with Disney, somebody who has become an expert over the decades with Hanna-Barbera, and so much more. Two-time Grammy-nominated Addy-winning writer, producer extraordinaire. And when I say writer-producer, he is in television, advertising, film, and theme park is his specialty, as well as music. He is the co-author of Mouse Tracks, the story of Disney records. And we're going to have a good time with Greg Ehrbar joining us live and direct from Los Angeles, California. This is going to be really cool, folks. If you enjoy, again, taking a trip down memory lane, but also talking about some of the new things that are happening in animation and so much more. Matter of fact, very excited. The fantastic world of Hanna-Barbera is something really exciting that he's going to be talking about. It's going to be coming out real soon. You may also know that, as I mentioned, co-authored the story of Walt Disney Records, Mouse Tracks, and in addition, has done a lot of work for publication, for advertising. We're going to go over a lot of different things, television and film, all celebrating, again, this beloved area of our lives. And, an area where you sort of get away from it all and you sort of become a kid again and you celebrate life. These are just some of the incredible things that he's created and or have been involved in. Yeah, so round up the kids. If you don't have any, you're a kid again here on the Jim Masters Show as we talk about all of these incredible things. So again, whether it's Disney, whether it's Warner, Universal, look at this, Disney 23. You know, some of those great faces and legends. Of course, Dick Van Dyke right in the center there. We'll talk about this. He's done magazine covers, commercials, all kinds of great things. Practically Poppins in every way. This is all his phenomenal work. And we're so excited again to celebrate it and show you some really cool things. Of course, the adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, as I mentioned as well, to Tom and Jerry, and on and on and on. This is just a few. Very talented guy. He's coming to us from Los Angeles and, Hollywood, California. And we are very excited to have an opportunity to celebrate. We're just sprinkling in some of these cool things that he has created, DVDs and all kinds of things like this, Disney's Hollywood Studios. Yes. And this, not bad. I'm just drawn to chocolate. We're going to have a good time. We dug up a lot of cool nuggets here, folks. And it's going to be great. He is revered in the industry. He's, somebody who has brought so much joy to so many people through his artistry, his creativity, his work in animation, in writing, music, and so much more. And he celebrates it in style in so many different ways, shapes, and forms. And that's what I love about what Greg does. So without further ado, we're going to welcome him to the show. Just real quick, if you'd like to participate, this is a very interactive show, as all of you know. I'm an interactive host. You can comment right now and say hello to us in the Jim Masters Show Live Levity Hall chat room. What the heck is that? Well, while the show is on live right now, we have the Levity Hall chat room open and available. When you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you can actually comment, say hello to one another, to other viewers watching, and to us as we celebrate all of this terrificness here on a fantastic episode of the Jim Masters Show. So subscribe to the channel. You can comment. And don't forget, leave a like for us on the channel and comment underneath the episodes. Man, would we love that. And thanks to all of you who have been doing that as well. That means the world to us. And you guys have been really, really great. I see a lot of comments coming in here already. So we're going to get this show started. Again, it is really my honor and pleasure to welcome Greg to our show. And here he is. And take a guess. Take a look at his background. Where do you think he is? Here's Greg. Hey, Greg, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, that was like my mother would just so love what you just said. You know, that was I'm thinking, who's this guy?
Who's this?
Gee.
Did he say Ehrbar or Earhart? Right?
It's yeah.
Hey,
I do want. Huh?
I was going to say, look at the background. Everybody recognize that fantastic, colorful background there? That's it, exactly. Which of those beautiful townhouse complexes is yours, Greg, behind you? Is the big one with the red?
I live in the this one over here because that's the one that the Jetsons, the Spaceways apartments or the Skypad, depending on the episode, they change it a lot. But you know, with Henry and Rosie and Astro and all, you know, they're neighbors. And of course, you know, when they say what show would you most love to be on, you know, if you could be in a show, I think it would be the Jetsons because it's just so cool.
Absolutely. I want to let folks know too, if they've ever requested a vacation planning DVD for Walt Disney World, or they've seen a few episodes of some classic cartoons such as Tom and Jerry, then you've seen Greg's work. As I mentioned, co-author of Mousetracks, the story of Walt Disney Records, co-editor of Inside the Whimsy Works, My Life with Walt Disney Productions. And that is just the shortlist, folks. Contributed to the official Disney Parks blog, the cartoon music book, celebrating the magic 40 years of Walt Disney World, and numerous Disney journals, books, and sites. And of course, Hanna-Barbera, the recorded history, something really exciting we're going to talk about as well with Greg, and lots more. This is just the shortlist, folks, of this iconic career. Greg, how did you first get into it? What was the area of study for you? And were you a kid growing up that just loved animation and cartoons and everything, Hanna-Barbera and Disney and all of it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I grew up when you had it was a cool time because a Disney film would come out in theaters and it would be a huge event and there would be lines around the block, and you had the Sunday night show, and those of us who love animation would wait for the coming attractions to see if it would be animation. And then you'd wait for the very end to see the trailer for what movie was coming out. And then Hanna-Barbera was part of our lives. Their cartoons were on daily, they were on weekends, and so those were characters we had great access to. So and plus, before there was video, you know, because there was a time when you couldn't record things and you couldn't stream things.
Right. Could you imagine?
You had records. And so I grew up with records with Mickey Mouse and the Flintstones and all of the shows, anything that was on a record that was from TV, Mr. Ed, Dennis the Menace, The Flying Nun. I'd always want the record because that was your
la
way.
la 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 la.
I've got 3 of those.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I love those.
And I was friends with Mark, who wrote that song too.
Really?
Yes.
Mark Parkin and Richie Adams.
Yes. Saw him at a friend's birthday party in New York City, Lower Manhattan. And everybody was talking about it was a real eclectic mix of people. And he has since passed. And but it was a wonderful conversation about the Banana Splits and just his epic career and all the material he was known for. But yeah, who didn't have that record and wore that out, huh?
Oh, he also wrote for the Archies. He wrote Catching Up on Fun.
Yes.
He wrote the theme to the original Scooby-Doo, Where Are You, too, co-wrote that.
Yes, so, right, exactly.
Iconic stuff.
Iconic stuff, exactly. So you were saying
I do want to point out that I co-wrote the Mousetracks book I wrote with Tim Hollis. I always like to mention Tim and I were partners on that. And the Practically Poppins was by Jeff Curdy, and he was kind enough to have me do the chapter on the Poppins records.
Oh, isn't that cool?
So that was kind of pleased and humbled to be part of that project. There's a sort of
Absolutely right.
a group of us who know each other and try whenever we can to say, hey, you want to do this or do that. And Mousetracks is still in print, and it was a pride and joy project for us. And we got to get a lot of people's names into the mainstream that were almost unknown before the book came out. There's a lot of famous people in there too,
Yeah.
but
Forward by
lots of
Leonard
people.
Maltin too.
Yes, yeah. Oh, and
Yeah.
he's the most wonderful guy. So supportive of
Yeah.
so many things. And
Tell us
my
about Mousetracks for folks who might want to get this.
well, there was never a book about the recording division of Disney. There was a book called The Golden Age of Walt Disney Records, which was a listing, which is a very helpful book. And then there was Jimmy Johnson, who was the president of the record company. He wrote his memoir, which had not been published. He wrote it in 1975. So we used those two as our starting point. And then we split up the interviews and interviewed who we were able to access, and then people who knew those people. So we have about 40 biographies in there of people like Fess Parker and Annette Funicello and Sterling Holloway, Thurl Ravenscroft, but then less known names like Roby Lester, who I adore, and she was a Disneyland story reader, and Terry York, people like that. Not as well known. A lot of studio singers like Gene Merlino and Bill Lee and Lulie Jean Norman. So the book is guaranteed to have you say, I didn't know that when you read it, because it's such a rich history just in the Disney Records division, and it also fueled a lot of the theme park and movie projects as well.
I tell you, you've had this long affiliation with Disney, and that has to be extraordinary. Tell us about how that happened and some of the amazing things you've had this opportunity to work on with the Walt Disney Company.
I'm one of those people who, at a certain point, I just said, I have to work for Disney. It's like Ariel, I don't know why, I don't know how, but somehow I'll be part of this world. When I first visited Walt Disney World in Florida, I was born in New York, but we moved to South Florida. And the first time I visited and saw the monorail and saw the castle, it said, I've always loved Disney, but this is a real place. And I had not seen Disneyland. And Walt Disney World is like a city. So
a little bit bigger than Coney Island.
it's huge. And having worked there, what you find also is it has a sense of community among what they call the cast members. So I always wanted to work there, and that was always my goal. I went to college, studied film, worked in film production, did a lot of writing and things like that. But I got into Disney, and in the marketing department, what I discovered was, during the era I was there, was the era of Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin, and like the second renaissance of animation. And oh, hi, Kathy. And the people who worked there, the esprit de corps, the people who are so, you could create an event, and then thousands of cast members would unify to make this event work. It was an astonishing thing. When there was any kind of a problem, there would be rallying among the cast members for different things. There was a gentleman who had a skiing accident, and the whole marketing division pitched in to get him a van so he could get in and out, and that kind of thing. That kind of thing made me so thrilled, because that was the Disney I was hoping it would be. I think the thing I did that I loved the most in my whole career was for Mickey's 60th birthday. They brought in underprivileged children from all over the world, mostly from this country, but just a handful from each city. And I asked for Cleveland, Ohio, because I wanted the Midwest, where they were not as likely to have been anywhere near Disney. And I felt like Willy Wonka for the day, because terrible things. Nobody turned into a blueberry, but one child did bite down on the glow jewelry, and her face was glowy, but she was okay. but being able to guide these children around and watch the thrill, and then tell them, and then when they'd say, can we go on it again, and I'd say, well, if we do this and this, and they're like, yay. And at the end of the time, these were kids that they didn't know there was anything within 5 miles of where they lived. And so I'll never forget their faces when I said goodbye when they were leaving. I knew I'd never see them again, but I knew that they found out there was something out there that was nice, something out there that they could dream about, and then maybe have a goal like I did.
How special and cool is that, huh, Greg, to have that opportunity to inspire in that beautiful way?
I never forgot it.
No. Growing up, what were some of your personal favorites of the animations and the cartoons?
Oh gosh,
Wacky Racers.
I loved Wacky Races.
I have the whole DVD
absolutely.
set. Yeah.
You know what? I just watched it.
The dog
again.
used to go, wah, 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 wah. The dog.
Yeah.
That's the dog's name. Wah, 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 wah.
Muttley.
Well,
that particular Muttley, yeah.
Muttley, yes.
And Muttley is very popular in Japan. Wacky Races is huge there. That was a cool show because it was almost like an animated live event every Saturday morning.
Yeah, you brought it in, and you know what I used to love too? Before you answered that question, I just thought about this. Saturday mornings was go-to time for kids. You had we just had Kathy Coleman and Wesley Yore from Land of the Lost on, and we had Marty Krofft from Sid and Marty Krofft on recently as well. And we were just talking about all of these series and shows of HR Puffin stuff and all of these things that kids would go to. But what was really cool was to also see the cartoon versions of the shows we were watching in the evening. The Jacksons, the Partridge Family, all these cartoon versions, because there was so much involved. You had the TV series, then they would have a cartoon. Then, of course, there'd be the lunch boxes, the T-shirts, the records. I mean, all the things that would go along with all the branding and the promotion. And it was a very special time, wasn't it?
It really was. You could, when the Archies were popular, you could buy boxes, specially marked boxes of Kellogg cereals, and there would be a record on the back. And you cut the record off, and it didn't play very well. And sometimes you had to scotch tape it to the turntable, but it played well enough to make you want to run out and buy the album and hear what it really sounded like. There were comic books and coloring books and card games and board games. And I used to like to play those games while the shows were on with my sister. That made it even more special. I think it's an era that is I mean, I know that their kids have wonderful things to enjoy now, but having that one morning every week, you went to school all week and you got this like sort of mini holiday, and you had your bowl of cereal or your Pop-Tarts, and the TV was kind of yours, from around 7 or 8 till about noon.
Right.
By the time, and then the CBS Children's Film Festival with Kukla, Fran, and Ollie was sort of the finale of the day.
That's right.
I remember
We'd be
that.
having our crisp cereal with it. Some people were quick. Some people were crisp.
I voted for Quisp. I have to admit.
So did I.
Quisp wasn't as abrasive, because
it was like a little saucer. Like a little flying saucer upside down, and the milk would be in the saucer. And they brought it back a few years ago, didn't they? There was a limited run of boxes of it.
Yeah, they do that. They do, and it's great when they do it, because that's a memory too. Just seeing the character in the box, it just brings you back. And Captain Crunch used to have little comic books inside, and you could send away for records too. The HR Puffin Stuff soundtrack was from Raisin Bran, and the Josie and the Pussycats records were from Kellogg's, and
that's right.
There were two Banana Splits records, and I pretty much could perform them now for you, but I would rather not bore you with that. But I love all the Krofft shows too. Love them.
That doesn't bore us. Do whatever you want to do, whatever you feel like, whatever, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Acapella, they love it. You can do anything. Nothing.
here's one. Here's one that you might remember from. This is like 1971. Hey, hey, beat the drum. We're gonna have fun. We're pussycats on the go with things to see and places to see for groovy folks in the know. In a moment, what this giant machine does. In the Know is brought to you by folks who know toys, Mattel.
Very nice. He took us back in time. I love it. That is so cool. Well, that's the thing. We've had a lot of people who have come through as guests who have been involved in the creation of so many cool things in our lives, not just television and film and stage, but other areas, because the show features, like you and I were talking about before we went live on the air, we do it sort of like a traditional talk show where the guests come from all different backgrounds as opposed to just one area of life. And we've had session musicians and session singers and jingle singers in and all. And what was amazing was like what you just did. Here you are all these years later, able to still sing bits and pieces from something from childhood, from your past. And you used to be able to do that. You used to be able to sing the theme songs to the TV shows, the kids shows, as well as, the Dick Van Dyke Show, and hum the themes. You used to be able to sing the jingles for radio stations and TV promos, and also commercials. I'm a pepper, you're a pepper. Would you want to be a pepper too? There was a certain feeling to all of it, and it was phenomenal. And one of the things that I love is we just did a special recently on Bob Barker, and we had Wink Martindale on and other great guests. How The Price is Right, even though The Price is Right has altered, to modernize a little bit, still is true to form. The music cuts that you hear, the underscoring is similar, if not some of the same tunes that Ed Kalehoff penned for Score Productions back in the 70s. And to still hear the theme, there's something reassuring about that. And a lot of times now, there isn't even any music. A show just goes right in, whether it's a kid's show or, in a show for adults. And there's no warmth or buildup that was just as important as the show itself. Tell us about.
One of the things that I think was a hallmark of a lot of these programs, and you can see a lot of them on MeTV and see what we're talking about, is they had stock themes. Some of it was actually stock music from professional music libraries, but Gilligan's Island had a series of themes. The Flintstones had it, the Jetsons had it, Johnny Quest, H.R. Puff and stuff. All of those shows had signature pieces of music that they played for various scenes. Now, that was an economic thing in some ways, because not every show had to be scored. For example, Lost in Space, John Williams only did 4 scores for that, 4 hours of scoring, but they took the cues and they used them throughout the series. So like da 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 da, that was John Williams, and they just used it over and over again. And sometimes they would completely score an episode, and sometimes they would go back into their library and do it. But that was what made them so fun, because you knew those pieces and they immediately cued an emotion in you. And there's room for music that is in the background and has to support the drama or the comedy, but there's also room for, I guess, that leitmotif, I think they call it, a theme for each character kind of thing, that really does add a lot of appeal.
Absolutely. You know what I used to love, and this is coming away a little bit from animation, but still in the same vein with the conversation, how perfect sometimes they were able to create. I think I had this conversation a little bit with Lloyd Schwartz when he came on. Of course, his dad Sherwood created the Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island and all these great shows, and Lloyd was a part of that. And I was thanking him and his father for all of the the fabulous underscoring and all the music, and how the music and the
Mhm.
underscoring just heightens perfectly the mood that you're already feeling, the dialogue, what the scene that you've got going on, whether it's cartoons, animation, and or non-animated, um, and how you're able to get a heightened sense of what they're trying to say or present through the actual music. And one of the on I Dream of Jeannie, I just love how they were able to create certain cuts of music that were specific to the characters. Like whenever
Mhm.
Dr. Bellows walked in, da na na
Bo
na
bo
na
bo
na
bo bo bo
ba
bo.
ba,
Da,
da
da.
na 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 ba ba.
Da,
That was
da.
his. That was his music. That was
Yeah.
his. Just sort of this whole, and it matches the look of his face, his walk, his personality, the whole Dr. Bellows image. That I find that genius. I always picked that out when I was a kid, how that was done and how that heightened my experience in watching and viewing. Just like when you go to the movies and you hear a beautiful score, a beautiful theme, how important that is, but how they were able to create certain cuts that were actually for a character.
Mhm. Oh, my favorite I Dream of Jeannie, or one of them, is the one that goes, "Dee, dee, 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 wah." You know that one?
Yeah. Or when they would cut to the scene and that fast bongo,
Oh, the
and then they had
bongo,
that
yeah.
fast,
Yeah, and what
yeah.
was
Oh,
also was fun when Screen Gems, because they made Genie and Bewitched
I
and,
know what you're gonna
Flying
say. Yes.
Nun and Here Come the Brides, is when they trade off, and you'd hear, like, a Genie cue on Flying Nun and a Bewitched cue on Here Come the Brides, and it was like, "Oh,
Right.
other
They
than that, I know that, that
interchanged.
makes me smart."
They
You
yeah, they
you win a
interchanged the
prize.
music, right, with some of the different series. You can hear it on different series, some of the same cuts, which was incredible. Screen Gems, of course, was another big one.
Mhm. Yeah, and they also were associated with Hanna-Barbera because they were responsible
Yes.
for helping them get those shows on the air, from Rough and Ready
Yes.
all the way up to, Johnny Quest. The last thing they worked on with Screen
Flintstones.
Gems was a great Alice in Wonderland special that
Oh,
was in
yes.
'66. But
Yes.
there was, and that music, the background music from that, ended up in a lot of cartoons. So they would, anytime they had a project with a little bit more money from
Yeah.
music, they would score it, and then they would take the cues out. The New Adventures of Huckleberry Finn was a very, very expensive primetime show because it had live
Oh,
action and
yes.
animation, and Ted Nichols scored that. And if you watch episodes of Scooby Doo or Josie and the Pussycats, you'll hear the music that was written for Huck Finn. But if you watch the original episode, you'll see where it originally went. Just like if you watch the first Scooby Doo, What a Night for a Night, the music score fits, and so then you know why it's there, and then afterwards they just put it in, but it was written that way. That was Hoyt Curtin's innovation from his training in production music and writing for films, is that, and writing jingles, is what he would do is write this music so it could play out, or it could be modular, it could be cut into infinite numbers of combinations. And he mentored a lot of top composers like Ron
Mhm.
Jones, who wrote for Star Trek, and um, John Debney, who wrote the score for Elf. A
Right.
lot of them trained with him.
It, if you watch some of the older versions of, we were talking about The Price is Right, when you can see some of that online from the 70s, and maybe the early 80s, but definitely the 70s. The cut of music that was used when they were one of the cuts of music, and I love all the different cuts of music. One of the cuts that you hear when they go to show the prizes to bid on turned out to be what they ended up using for the theme to Family Feud.
Yes.
Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, and you hear it, and it seems I never heard it when it was used on The Price is Right, only as Family Feud, but then to hear it on The Price is Right, it was like, so that's where they got that from. Yeah, kind
Yeah,
of cool, huh?
I remember it being in the early days of Price is Right. Um, and a lot of times, if a composer also is a music producer for a um, one of those libraries, they will bring their music with them to different projects. So if you go back to the Loretta Young show in the
Mm,
early to mid 50s, there was some scores, especially from her. There were some creepy episodes of some very dark, um, sort of gothic episodes. That scary music was later used on One Step Beyond,
that's
and
right.
then the theme from One Step Beyond was the second season theme to Outer Limits. So it's commonly done.
Exactly right. So you were saying some of the things that as a kid and teen coming up, that were some of your personal favorites.
One of the shows I loved as a kid was I don't know if you remember this. This is not the original, but the remake of Winky Dink and You in
Oh yeah,
1969.
I'd heard
This
about
is
that.
they call it the first interactive TV show because this is before these kids today with their fancy computers, and you can make a movie on your phone, or you can make an animated feature on your phone. Back then, this was a very low budget 5-minute cartoon, and you sent away for a kit. It was $250 for the kit. You got a magic screen, magic crayons, and a magic cloth, and then you got this sort of color form set. When the show was on, you would put the screen on your TV, and you would use the magic crayons anytime Winky Dink or one of the other characters instructed you to either trace an object or draw lines between something or put a box here. And then they would make the thing you drew be part of the action. And it was very crude, very basic, but you were part of the cartoon. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. That was one of my favorites as a kid.
That's
There are tons of shows. Love sitcoms. Keep returning to them. Just watch Dennis the Menace all the way through recently. I
yes.
loved that as a kid, and Donna
Well,
Reed.
and then
Uh,
they just tore down, or that whole, was
yeah,
it the old Columbia Ranch, Warner Ranch, where all of those sets and facades for I Dream of Jeannie and Father Knows Best, and of course the
hmm
house used for um, Dr. Bellows, as well as Bewitched. That's all gone, right? They didn't
I know.
save.
It's a regret. I
Oh,
never got to see it. I never
I
got because I came close a few times, but never actually was on that ranch to see those. Because some of them burned down. The Partridge Family house burned down while it was in production, but
right.
they had the blueprints and they completely rebuilt it. But land and property is just so valuable now
Now
that it's
it's
hard to sustain a back lot.
yeah.
The Hanna-Barbera building is still there, though, because there is such a thing as the Los Angeles Conservancy. There are people who valiantly fight to keep some of the history in existence. And that building was considered historical. There was years and years of court stuff, and they finally were able to save the outside. Kind of like in England, you don't change the outside of a famous structure. You can do things with the inside. So there's offices in there. The LA Fitness next to it used to be the Annex building where Ink and Paint was, and then to the right of it, there's a Jetson-y kind of building that was added for merchandise later. So the complex is still there. And I kind of find it cool that it
Yeah.
still exists.
Oh,
There are a few.
we talk a lot about the many things you've had an opportunity to work in: television, advertising, film. I mean, all of it. Your work with Disney has really touched upon a lot of different areas, right? Tell us about the work, decades worth of work at Disney.
The great thing about the job I had is that they had you work on absolutely anything that they needed. There was no pigeonholing in those days. It was like you could go up to management and just say, "Can I work on this?" And they'd say, "Sure, give it a shot." If you could concept. So you're showing the vacation guide. That was a very tough thing to write year after year because it was loaded with information. But that's a challenge because you have to make complicated price structures and packages and things very digestible for everybody to read, and write copy that makes sometimes the challenge with Disney was having to find ways to explain the wonderful, because it was already wonderful. How are you going to expand on that? But that's something I worked on a lot. There was a lot of things that people used in their day to day. That was a film made for Main Street USA in the 25th anniversary of Walt Disney World. The film was called Mickey's Magical Workshop, I believe. And in place of the Walt Disney story to the right, they had a 25th anniversary celebration center. You'd go in and you tell what year you first visited, and you get a badge. And this film had Mickey and a crystal ball. And there was a lady in the crystal ball who helped Mickey see previews of new attractions. Disney Cruise Line was just starting, Disney's Animal Kingdom. And then when you left outside, there were models of all these things. That was pretty exciting because it was an attraction per se, and it had the automatic doors. I remember my sister cried just by the automatic doors opening. She said, the doors are opening on something you wrote, Right. So that was kind of fun. But I did guide maps. The guidebooks. Oh, that was an ad. That was an ad when we had the Aladdin parade, and the guidebooks that were books. I said, people have to turn pages for each land. What if we made a great big map? And so an artist named Rick Varley and a guy named Tim Kofall in advertising, we got together, and that's where the first maps came from. They were not maps before, they were guidebooks. So I got as much conversation. Oh, that's the front of that's no longer there, but that is the World Drive entrance to Disney's Hollywood Studios. And I just drew a little picture of what if it was an unrolling roll of film, and we could change out what we were promoting at the time. And then the art director, Bob Krozik, did a much more elaborate drawing of it. And then Imagineering made it marry with the sort of Pan-Pacific auditorium look of the other entrance. That was there for many, many, many years. And so that was kind of fun to do. And that was this was fun. This was loads of fun. This was a British London Times insert, and it was done like one of those photo comics. So we took photos of various things, and then we put in the little bubbles for each one. And sometimes we could be funny with it. And it was very oddball. And I remember waiting to see the big boss, and people were saying he's not going to approve it, and he did. So we were just, I remember we went outside in the hallway and just fell down on the floor because it was like, because it was just something kind of nutty that we did. I just enjoyed.
That's so cool.
This was a freelance job. I did a lot of freelance for Disney Publishing and Walt Disney Records and D23. This was the commemorative magazine for the Jon Favreau version of the Jungle Book. So I had to work on each article and each different aspect of the film. And, and that was fun because when you work on that, or you work on a graphic novel, you're getting to know all this information months before the film's even done. Sometimes you have to guess,
right.
what it's going to be like. But it's a fun thing.
That is so cool. And this is just some of the work, folks.
I'm very proud of this. This is this was an original story for a read-along book. And it came in a box with other princess Christmases, and they didn't have a Cinderella. So they said, just write something original. And that pose and the idea of the mice helping decorate, my daughter, when she was little, actually drew a little kid drawing of it. And then the art director kind of rendered it in that way. So it's a really sweet story. It's sort of a midquel, takes place like before she met the godmother and the prince. And, it's a lovely, that's one of the things I'm also proud of, because it's just a very gentle, sweet Christmas story. And the stepmother is forced to say thank you to Cinderella, which I thought was a triumph,
That's incredible. Look at this.
Oh, we had a magazine for an affinity publication for people who visited the resorts. And this was a quarterly magazine, and we did many versions of it, as many as 23 different versions for different age groups and stuff. So we change out the stories. This was the Walt Disney Salute edition, and that is a photo mosaic. So that is actually made up of thousands of teeny tiny photographs of Walt Disney World fun that make up a
Wow,
Walt photo.
that is
We had a
amazing.
great time working on that. And then the parades, this was in the era of Joan London and Regis
Oh,
Philbin.
yes. Right.
And this was the first parade where they did two parades simultaneously.
These were
We taped
terrific.
them. Oh, it was because Macy's, it was a tradition. You had Macy's on Thanksgiving, and then you had the Disney one on Christmas, and we'd have little preview video packages of things that were coming soon. So you'd get very excited about that. And then
Yeah.
Regis and Joan would call out the parade, and they actually
Yeah.
would do two of them. We actually did, it was a 3-day production. We did one parade 2 days before Christmas, just in case there was any kind of a weather issue or anything went wrong. And that was shipped overseas to the troops and stuff. And then the one that ran on Christmas Day was actually live in those days. It was,
Yes. Remember?
and
Yes.
all the elements had to come together in those 2 hours. It was unbelievable, but it was a huge thrill. And Regis and Joan were tremendous. Regis, he was
a friend. I missed him.
wonderful.
Yeah. Wasn't
Oh,
he?
I do too.
Just a real, hey, I'm only one man.
Yeah.
Hey,
And the
I'm
more he
saving
made
the
fun
network.
the more he teased you, the more he liked you. It was
Yes.
he called me Gregor. It's like, Gregor, I'm going to read it this way. And he didn't like reading a script. He did
No,
not
he
like
was an
scripts
ad
because
lib guy.
so
Yeah.
I used a combination of watching Regis every day and studying every aspect of him and of his speaking and Dana Carvey's impression. And I wrote
Yes.
it like a comedy script and gave him, dumb jokes to say and stuff. And he was like, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make this work.
Yeah, he was the best.
He was
Unique.
and people were like, he had people just screaming from as he's walking through the park very
Oh,
briefly just to get backstage.
Rage,
You're the king,
rage.
you're the king.
Yes, I loved when, of course, when he was on with Kathy Lee as well. But if Kathy Lee or Kelly weren't on, his wife Joy would come on,
Joy.
and
Mhm.
just the two of them together, because she would keep him sort of in check, and because she was so laid back and so calm, cool, collected. She had been with Regis all those years, and
Mhm.
she was the balance, and just some of the funny moments. And they offered her the co-host position with Regis before they auditioned Kelly and any of the others that came through, but she didn't want to do it. She had lived it through Regis, and she didn't want to do it. But I thought that they would have been spectacular together. They would have been spectacular. Here's some more. Look at this. You mentioned the Archies.
Archie. I've loved Archie since the original TV show, and I have all their albums, and Ron Dante is a friend.
Sugar, the
number one song of 1969, Above Let It Be. The Archies were ginormous in the late 60s. And so I was freelancing for Archie, and the hardest part of that, and it was the same as writing for Tom and Jerry, everything's been done. How can you come up with a twist on the triangle, a way of using a new trend or technology or gimmick that will freshen an idea? And pitching was the hardest part. Writing it, the characters are so vivid. That's why Archie's been around over 80 years or so, because the characters talk to you. You know what they're going to say almost before you write it, and you want to get it down because they're just some of the most. Now there's inconsistencies. There's smart, strong Archie in the serious comics, and then there's clumsy Archie. But for the most part, I think the reason these have been successful is because these are the friends you have all through school. And you know them, and you know what to expect. And the core Archies never really change. And they can do all of these new versions and stuff. They've done that. They did that in the 50s and 60s too. That's great. Comics go off and they do other universes. But the core Archie is, to me, the longest running situation comedy in history. Because it's always, I still read them. I still love them. And writing for them, it was a and they reprint them every once in a while in the digest. And I'll get a phone call saying, I was checking out at the store and I picked up this and I saw your name. I'm like, oh, what issue is it? I want to see it again.
which is really amazing. Look at this.
Oh, yeah. Wonderland Tea was designed by Susanna Gay, and it was done. Actually, my wife was the official editor for the copy of the Disney attractions merchandise division. And I wrote a lot of toy and food item and collectible copy for them. Wonderland Tea was a dream project because Alice in Wonderland's my favorite. It's my favorite attraction at Disneyland. It's my favorite Disney movie, and it's the greatest record album ever made. If you go online and you just Google Greg Ehrbar greatest record album, you'll get Alice in Wonderland. Anyway, the Wonderland Tea was a dream project because I know the movie by heart, so it was loaded with references to the film, and it became one of the best-selling items, and it was a thrill to walk into the Emporium, and there's the tea right up front, because it wouldn't have been right up front if it wasn't selling well. They even put it into windows on Main Street. They did a beautiful window with a like looking glass and a hearth and a Cheshire cat on a chair, and then they put tea all around it. And I thought, well, I'll never get a window on Main Street that the tea got a window, so that was nice. So we were really the various tea websites said the tea is good, but get it for the package. Nice things were said. And my wife and my son and my daughter, they love tea. I like coffee. I'm the only holdout, but they love tea. So all the way around, it was a dream project.
Look at this.
Oh, these are the mints. Yeah, that was just sometimes you write little bits of copy just to add a flair, just to add some humor here and there. And sometimes you could take it real far and get kind of crazy and silly. And it was just a matter of I just love the retro look of these. Merchandise is one of the most creative areas, because it isn't. Sometimes you just want the box. You can't throw the box away, Yes. And that's the thing there.
Exactly right. Yes, that's so true. And look at this work of art.
Yeah, that was the graphic novel for Mulan. That was an instance where they send you the script and you have to sort of visualize it in your mind, because it isn't boarded. Well, it's boarded, but you're not involved in the production. You have to take this complete script and create a visualization in writing. So you have to write what's happening in the frames. You have to break it down by each page. The pages have to have a sort of a sequentialness to them. So you'll turn the pages, and just enough of the dialogue to convey it and be very, very faithful. Because I know as a kid, if the comic book version wasn't faithful, it kind of bugged me. So you want to be loyal to the film.
And true fans would know. Yeah.
And Mulan was one of the best. That was made completely at the Florida Animation Studio, and it was something that they were very proud of. And what a great character and role model, because she's motivated by the love of her family, and doing the right thing. It's not just about me. It's about, I have to do this, and she just figures it out along the way. And it was one of the first films my kids saw. So it's very, very close to them as well.
A friend of mine, since retired, worked for about 25 years with Macy's. You mentioned Macy's, and worked lived in New York City, but worked across the river in New Jersey at the Macy's design studio. So we got a chance to go just before Thanksgiving during the early part of the holiday season to see all of the miniature versions of the big floats that they were designing. We saw the actual floats deflated. We saw some of them inflated, and most of what you would then see on Thanksgiving morning coming down in front of Macy's in New York City during the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. We got a chance to go to the design studio and see all of the mock versions, the early versions, the drawings, the little animated figures, and just the figurines. It was really, as well as the floats and the balloons. And it's so cool. You just become, it's cool to get that insider look before the public saw it, but also you were just transported back into a simpler time. So it was really cool to be around all of that feeling, you know, as a creative person, and to feel that excitement and energy of the preview of what you were going to see at the Thanksgiving Day Parade at the design studio. I don't know if you ever got a chance to go to their design studio and
Mhm.
see all of that, but it's extraordinary.
We went to the actual parade and discovered that, and if people are planning a trip to New York at Thanksgiving, if you go a couple of days early, the balloon inflation is done, I believe, in Washington Square, and it's very crowded, but it is incredibly cool because you get to go right up to like the Buzz Lightyear balloon and the SpongeBob balloon and see them as they're being inflated. And that's about as exciting as the parade. To go to the parade, you have to get there very, very early.
Oh yeah.
Um, and we were there. I think Andy Williams was in the parade when we were there, because I remember he was walking because the train he was on had broken down or something. But it is, and what you also see are things local, more local things that they don't necessarily broadcast on the network,
On
like
that
the
network.
dancing lawyers with their briefcases, you know, and you know, it's sort of just New York things that
Yeah.
are you know. But I'll tell you, you talk about things you watched as a kid. I was raised that that was what you did on Thanksgiving morning. My kids were raised that way. You know, the turkey's
Oh,
getting
yeah.
prepared, you're
Oh,
helping with that, and
yeah.
you're starting to
And it,
smell the smells, and
yes,
it's that parade, and now the doggy show afterwards is the two
the
things
doggy
we
show, and then Channel 9 in New York then would have, um, is it King Kong and then Mighty
Mhm.
Joe Young?
That's right, yeah.
Yes.
And some we'd also around that time, Miracle on 34th Street we'd watch,
Yes.
maybe Babes in Toyland with Laurel and Hardy, stations would start showing that. There was a lot of wonderful local stuff, and,
Oh, yeah.
uh, you know,
They
sometimes
had all
odd
the toy
things, you know?
commercials.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
I remember
Yeah,
there
and
was
the Sears
the Wish Book.
yeah. Yeah, the Witch Book.
One time I circled, the folks said, "Here, you can take a look." You know, because a lot of our things we would pick out of the back of the Sears Wish Book, which was the toy section, and it was a major thing. And one time, Mom had said, "Here's the catalog, the Wish Book from Sears. It just came in. You know, take a look and circle a few things, and we will then see if we can get it to the North Pole and to Santa Claus, and we'll see. There's no guarantees. Who knows what he will deliver? If he's going to deliver any of those things, we don't know because we're not Santa Claus. Santa Claus is up in the North Pole." And they remember it well. It's amazing how they remember these things. I circled about 99 things. And I had the Lost in Space robot. That was one of the things I did get that year.
Ooh, the
And my
Remco
sister
one.
had the Mrs. Beasley doll from Family Affair.
Mhm.
Yeah. See, you used to then have these things that came from the TV series, the cartoons. You wanted the things that you saw.
My brother had the My Favorite Martian magic set and the Camp Granada Milton Bradley game, the Alan Sherman song, you know,
It
and
was like,
Shenanigans. We had a Shenanigans game based on the
oh,
TV game
yeah.
show.
They would have the games too that were named that were after the shows. Um, I had I had I saw it. I think it was a TV commercial or it was in the Wish Book. I had the Charlie McCarthy ventriloquist doll because
Yeah,
I love
they
ventriloquism.
were in the Sears catalog.
It was in the Sears
Hmm.
catalog. I still love ventriloquism, even though you don't really see it as much anymore. I just love it. And we were going back from visiting our relatives up in Connecticut, and we were going back to New York, to out east on Long Island. And my sister and I were playing with the Charlie McCarthy doll in the back seat of the car. And my sister, who doesn't seem to remember this, but I do, pulled too hard. You know, if you slipped your hand in the back of his sport coat, there was this
Hmm.
string that you pulled that moved his mouth. And she pulled a little too hard on the string, and the mouth busted and was stuck open.
Oh,
Now, what the heck do you do going forward with a ventriloquist doll where the mouth breaks?
Yeah.
And
The repair
that was
shop.
the end of Charlie.
Did you
Short-lived.
have the instructional record, the Edgar Bergen instructional record that told?
Yes, yes, which was really cool. And of course, people know that that is Candace Bergen's
Hmm.
father
Yep.
as well. So many great stories and it's just such good stuff that we're talking about. If you're just joining us, folks, I'm your host, Jim Masters. This is the Jim Masters Show, live entertainment, lifestyle, celebrity talk show series. Our very special guest coming to us here exclusively, Greg Ehrbar. He is here, two-time Grammy-nominated, multi-Addy winning TV, advertising, film, theme park writer, co-author of Mouse Tracks, the story of Disney records, and lots more. We're going to be talking about something special with Hanna-Barbera coming up in just a second. If you joined us late, missed anything, this is archived on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. We encourage you to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We would love that. Here's something else, too, that you did.
Yep. Did a
You've
lot
made
of
tomorrow
work for
brighter.
the community. Lots of work. I
Yes.
mean, I wrote a whole annual report for Osceola County. That's why you never knew. You would be doing a national TV commercial one day, and then you would be doing about the new library was built, in Kissimmee, and this was for the college programs that Disney still has a lot of programs for young people and for education. So this was for that. So
Mhm.
it was always fun to be able to work. I did
I
several
love
articles for
this.
this issue. This was focused on various legends, and I was asked to write sections about a few of them in there. I think I also did I think there was a timeline in there that I worked on, and that was handed out at the D23 convention, at Expo convention as well. Did quite a few D23 articles. When we lost Annette Funicello, which I'm still not over, I did a feature story for D23 and for the Disney Newsreel studio newsletter and for the blog and for I said anybody who wants me to write about Annette, because I just adore her. To me, she's the queen of Walt Disney World and the original Disney princess, because
Yes, and
she
former
was
Mouseketeer, and
Mouseketeer.
yeah,
Um,
we had members of the Mickey Mouse Club Mouseketeers from the 1990s when they sort of brought it back in the 90s.
mhm.
We had the cast members on as guests on our show, and gang, you can see that archived on our YouTube channel. And have them today to see what they've done with their lives from back when they were all kids, and to have that incredible, experience and what it was like, just being a part of the Disney tradition and heritage. I would imagine for you too, knowing that heritage, knowing the branding, knowing how people feel about it and how it's touched the lives of people, not only here in the US and Canada, but around the world. uh, you probably were very aware of the tradition and just the feeling of Disney as you were working on projects with and for.
I never forgot about it. It was a part of everything I did. To me, it was whatever I was writing or working on. I was thinking about who was going to see it. Um, if it was some sort of event-based thing or involved something in the park, I would think about the guests in the park and how it would affect them, the cast members. It was always about, because I thought of myself reading a magazine article or a brochure at home. How did I feel about it? Would I want to read it again? Would I want to pass it along? So the integrity of the heritage was always important. And that doesn't mean that old is great and new is not. It just means that whatever is new has to be uh, in some ways cognizant and in line with what those qualities are. And it's a hard thing to determine. And it's something that's constantly discussed. We have meeting after meeting about that. But by and large, it's just like anything else. The public, a lot of times, will tell you a lot of what they want and a lot of what they're looking for. And sometimes, if you can be responsive to that, that's a really great thing. I just like the fact that the things that I would write a guest guide that would be in all the hotel rooms. I love the idea that people would not only have that, but they might keep the poster that came inside. I also I co-produced and chose the music that was played in the on one of the channels in the room. And I would sometimes get emails from people or notes from people saying, is this on an album? No, it was specially made. And it's like, we leave that on all night. We love having it
Custom
on.
music.
You know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing is kind of humbling, because you don't know how many people are going to be affected. It's just like anything else in life. Everything you do, you don't know how many ramifications it will have. So you want
Yes.
to sometimes think twice and give it a lot of care and a lot of sound like Jerry Lewis, a lot of the love. It's about the love and the giving and the doing and the
Yes.
laughing.
Or
but
as
but I
we call it here on the show, we say levity, because I said, 3 years ago, the show has a lot of light, love, and levity. And one time I said it a little too fast for the new viewers who don't know why we say that word. And I said, light, levity. Somehow I combined love and levity together, and out came levity. And that's been part of it on the Jim Master Show ever since. As a matter of fact, just so you know, they've already called you a levity. So you're a Jim Masters Show levity
Oh,
here
thank
on the show.
you.
How
Thank
cool
you
is
very
that to be
much.
a levity on the Jim
That's very
Masters Show,
nice
huh?
of you.
You've
Uh,
worked all your life to be a Jim Masters levity, haven't you? I knew that you did.
I did. I
You did.
did. And
It's a
I'm
good
proud.
feeling.
It is. And I love words that combine things. I used to sort of get
Yes.
kidded for, like, I'd put tacular on anything I could find. And
Yes.
but
Fantastic.
I think I love doing that kind of thing. And I think words that combine nicely are fun words. So I like that a
Absolutely.
lot.
Another in the groundbreaking production groups, of course, Rankin-Bass Productions,
Oh, yeah.
and all of those incredible Christmas classics and so much more. Tell us about this.
Oh, this was Rankin-Bass is also a very special part of my life. The specials and also the music, the songs, the
Yes, Jules
scores.
Bass, Arthur Rankin
Ah,
Jr.,
Maury
and the
Laws.
logo at the end too.
Oh
People
yeah,
miss
with the
that logo
twang.
at the end with the
Yeah.
twang. Yeah.
Yeah, if you go on, I think I have a YouTube channel, and I did a little tribute video to Paul Coker Jr., to Maury Laws, who was their house musical director, that you can watch, and it has the little twang thing at the end, the logo. This is a collection of specials, and it actually includes a commentary that I was asked to do for Santa Claus is Coming to Town, which is my favorite of the specials. It just has all of the elements at their peak. And I love the special so much. And I have the album that I knew it by heart. So I was able to just yammer on for 51 minutes without any cut, except one time, because I wanted to explain Jessica's voice, because it's not her voice when she says wait. So I said, can you run it back so I can explain wait? And then they said, okay. But other than that, it was all the way through, because I could go on a street corner and tell everybody about how great the special is. So doing the commentary was was a joy. There's also a documentary in there with people like Jon Favreau and Henry Selick, who made Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach. People talking about Lee Mendelson, who did the Charlie Brown specials, talking about what Rankin-Bass meant to them. And it's done in a really good, it's a like 45-minute special that's on the Rudolph and the Frosty and the Santa Claus individual discs, but of course is on this, because this combines all of them. It is a rite of passage for so many generations. These specials just gain their momentum, and they're part of they're just it isn't like they're necessarily the slickest
No, that's the
animation,
thing, right?
but it
Yeah.
doesn't matter, because they're so creative, and the soundtracks are so good, and the acting, the casting, everything about them just clicks.
You know what I used to love too is how they would, when they would create the characters, they would use a lot of legendary stars of the day. Of
Hmm.
course, Fred Astaire as the mailman, Santa Claus is coming to town. Mickey Rooney played Santa Claus, and different ones. How Shirley Booth, I believe, was in
Hmm.
the year without Santa Claus.
Hmm.
Just these iconic figures, and how they would create the figure to almost look like the actor or actress, which I think was so
No,
cool. If you look at it, if folks now going to relook at these, um, it's incredible how they did that.
you know what else they did is they would actually, at the very beginning of Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Fred Astaire is dancing, and they obviously used either stills or clips to study his poses for the dances he does. And as best as they could with the animation of the figure, he is doing those dances. And Danny Kaye was a good friend of Arthur Rankin's and actually flew to Japan with him to look over the animation of his figure, because he did two specials for it. Yeah, two. Here Comes Peter Cottontail, and a pilot
Yes.
called The Enchanted World of Danny Kaye, The Emperor's New Clothes.
My mother is funny. She still, to this day, is searching, searching, searching. She remembers there was the little drummer boy that they did, but the
Mm-hmm.
one that you can only find is the 30-minute version. But there was a 1 hour version that aired, and she vividly remembers it and has been searching feverishly for that 1 hour version of it, and you just can't find it anywhere.
Well,
And I remember
let me see if
seeing it.
I can help you with that. Actually, the original, the first one was made in '68 with Greer Garson, and that was 30 minutes. But a sequel was made called Little Drummer Boy Book Two, and that was with Zero Mostel, and that
And
was the only Emmy nomination I think they ever got, and which is
that was an
unbelievable
hour.
to me. No, that was a half hour too. So what NBC must have done is put them together, and she thought there was an hour. Book two is available. I don't know if it's Warner Archive. I think it's Warner Archive that has it
So they
on
put it
a
together to sort of continue the story
yes.
then. Probably went to commercial break and then came back, station
Hmm.
ID, and then it was what seemed like a continuation of the full story.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. It
yes.
was actually two. I think the
Only
other one was made like
Greg has
76.
answered that question. My mother's
Mhm.
going to love you, Greg.
Yeah, I think you can get. I know you can get the first one you just saw, but the second one I believe is Warner Archive, and I think it's on with a couple of other specials. Nestor, the long-eared Christmas donkey.
Nestor, she loves Nestor too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, and it was Greer Garson again. So if you watched the two half hours, you really couldn't tell that you
Right.
weren't
That's what it
watching
was.
an hour.
Exactly right. Wow, boy. And the folks are in Florida, Greg. So if you're down there hanging around Disney or any of that, or they're out on the coast, but
Mhm.
answering that question now, she'll probably bake you an apple pie. Finally, because she's been looking for the hour version. I'm like, I remember, I know what you were saying when we saw it for an hour, but she can only find the half because we have all the DVDs of all of them. And now that answered the question that they put the two together to make the hour, which was a smart programming move, to keep us there for the hour. We do have something that might bring back a quick memory here. We just talked about it. Rankin-Bass, again, all these Christmas specials. And Here Comes Peter Cottontail. Look at this, gang.
I love that. I just
And
love that.
and just the music clip, the bongos, just the
Yeah.
whole, just they brought in musicians to just do that. And we heard
And
it
it
all
was
our
it was
lives.
it was such a Maury Laws piece too, because he was a guitarist originally, so it starts with a twang. It's got the bongos from the action scenes and sort of its Mad Monster Party kind of thing,
Yeah.
and then it has that big boomph at the end.
Dum.
They always had the big bump at the end with the echo.
Yeah, it's so perfect of the time too, the definitive nature of it. Dun, dun. We'll show it again for you folks because it's short. It's just, I used to love that when
Yeah, you'd
it would
wait
come on
for
at
it.
the end.
Mhm.
Right, exactly. And then later
Sometimes you'd get a
on,
video and it wouldn't be on it, and it's like, "Wait a minute."
yes, wait, I want exactly. Or sometimes later years, the stations would cut credits or cut the ends and
Oh,
go right to the next show. I know
yeah,
that's a whole other, they squeeze it and then they start the next show already. Why even squeeze it? Just then get rid of it. Why do you have it
yeah,
squeezed where we don't even hear the music? If you're going to start the next show, just start the next show. But I would rather, now they have where you can skip intro on a lot of the shows.
yeah.
And I don't. I want to hear. And then
No,
there's
it's
Maud and all these, you know. I like the intros. I like the music.
that's part of I don't like TV shows or just to watch a TV show or a movie without seeing the very beginning and the very
The
end.
whole, the whole
I
thing,
just
right?
like to.
Yeah, that's part of the whole, feeling of it and beauty of it, and so much more. More things we want to show everybody here, which I think is really terrific. Look at this.
Yeah, that was one of the things I referred to where the
Yes,
insider guide was like a an instruction manual for every guest that checked into the hotel, was in
to
the
the
room.
hotel.
Then the Be Our Guest guide replaced that, and the idea behind it was all done in Q&As, all the way down to like, where can I buy postage stamps? Everything that somebody needed to know, because Walt Disney World is ginormous, and now it's got 4 parks, 2 water parks, over 24 hotels. Oh, that one I posed for. I thought, let's do a dragnet kind of thing, and I went down
Did
to
you
Don.
really?
Yeah, I think it was Don Ducky Williams who was one of the character artists, and I said, let's do a Jack Webb thing. So I said, Goofy's going to be standing like, and I stood in his doorway and I did the pose, and he did the thing,
That is
the
so
drawing of
cool.
that. There was quite a few of these, just coming up with gags for the boxes of candy that they sold in all of the different places. And you
Isn't
had to
that
come up with
cool?
lots of them, and then they would pick the ones they liked and design them.
That is so cool, right? Taffy.
Oh, I love
Just
the now that if you see this on my website, read the back, because the back is completely ridiculous. Uses for taffy, use it as a stylish wrap. And,
right.
they said, write anything you want. Well, that's all you need to tell me. So I
That's all
wrote,
you need to tell me.
the ode to taffy, the taffy oath. Taffy to me is a funny word. And it
It
was my
is, isn't
mother's
it?
name. Yeah, it is just funny. It was my mother's nickname in high school. So, there you
Was it
go.
taffy? Yeah.
It was taffy. So that was lots of fun. The one you could kind of just go nuts within reason, but go nuts. That was always fun.
That is funny. That is incredible. What's her full name?
Oh, her name is Carol. But they called her Taffy in high school. I remember once for her birthday, we found an old comic book with a character named Taffy, and we framed it for that. She doesn't seem like a Taffy. She's more like, my mom's more like Raymond's mother on Everybody
Oh,
Loves Raymond.
yeah.
You wouldn't call her
Right.
Taffy
Doris
either, but
Roberts. No, you wouldn't say
it's
taffy. Yeah. It's
that's
funny.
why we find it so funny, because it doesn't
Well,
describe her.
it was very endearing. They would have nicknames and different things
Mhm.
at that time as well. Like my uncle, whose real name is Floyd, but he never went with it, or so he was Sonny,
Mhm.
Sonny, Sonny, Uncle Sonny. We have always known him as Uncle Sonny, but the real name Floyd.
I have
Did you have
an uncle Don,
Don?
and his name was Carmine, but he was known by Dan, Don, Carmine, and Nick. And so my dad called him Uncle Dan, and we called him Uncle Don. But he had about 5 names, and he answered all of them.
Sounds like an episode of The Sopranos.
He was a house
Yeah, the
painter. He
Don
was
in
the
there.
sweet.
Yeah, the Carmine in there.
He was a sweet man. I mean, he was quiet. He was one of the few quiet people on my mother's side of the family.
So, you said you grew up in New York,
Well, I was in New York until till I was about 4, and then
the
we moved
city,
to
or the outskirts,
White
suburbs.
Plains
Oh, yeah.
around there, Westchester
Oh,
County.
White Plains.
Yeah.
Now, if you're in the city, of course, if you're in the city or if you're out east on Long Island, if you're visiting family or friends that are in White Plains, they figure they're going upstate. And then you
Oh,
talk to
really?
somebody in White Plains, Well, anything north of the Bronx is considered upstate. You're going to Mamaroneck. Oh, we're going upstate for the weekend. And then you talk to somebody in Mamaroneck and they're like, this isn't upstate. Syracuse is upstate.
Yeah. Yeah. I had my Aunt Sadie and Uncle Joe lived in the Bronx, and she worked at Gimbals and he was a cab driver. So
Gimbals,
it was,
yes, Gimbals.
yeah.
Remember Gimbals? Yeah. S. Klein's, Klein on the Square, and all those stores.
Corvettes.
And of course, Rocky and Bullwinkle.
This was a blast because this is another example of, this was a read-along.
Yeah.
And read-alongs, this was a Disney read-along, even though it was a Universal license. Disney produced it. And again, I got a script and really nothing else because the film had not been completed. So, but you have to put dialogue in there and hope that the dialogue works with what you've written. And this had dialogue by Robert De Niro and let's see, Jason, Costanza guy. I can't think how, Jason, I should know this from Seinfeld. And it had Bullwinkle played by the wonderful Keith Scott, who's a good friend and just wrote a book about cartoon voices, and June Foray as Rocky. And to write it, I thought, what if I write it in the style of the way William Conrad used to narrate it? So I wrote it in very Jay Wardian tones.
Jason Alexander.
Jason Alexander, thank you. And so I wrote it in the, last time you remember, and all of that kind of stuff. And the long arm of the law had him in his meaty hand, they really silly stuff like that. And self-reflexive, like, in the time it takes to finish this read along, our heroes were caught. So what happened was Corey Burton was selected to be the narrator, and he did this terrific read. And I ran into him months later after it was released. Wow. And I said, you did so well on that. He said, you wrote that. I knew you wrote that. I knew that was you, because they don't always know who the writer is, but it really turned out funny. And it was very, very faithful. It isn't a bad movie. And I think one of the reasons it underperformed was because the show wasn't on a lot. And if it isn't in the top of the mind of the public, I think that affects the box office. When the first Flintstone movie came on, they were doing marathons of Flintstones. When the second Flintstone movie, they were not. So it has a lot to do with what everybody's doing at home. And then if they'll go to the theater to see the thing that they love on the screen. Sometimes they'll say, oh, I can see this at home, and why should I see it on the screen? But in the case of Rocky and Bullwinkle, I think a lot more people would enjoy it who haven't seen it.
Now, we're talking about all these iconic, and there's some more to show here, but do you like, because you like animation, did you also like Family Guy, The Simpsons, and some of those other animated sort of...
You know what? My favorite of all of those is Bob's Burgers. I love Bob's Burgers because it has stayed very consistent. It's been on quite a while. I think it's in 13th season, so it's going into its 14th. I like the fact that Bob's character is not a dope. He's not, no one ever listens to him. He isn't necessarily completely respected, especially by Louise, the one daughter, but he and Linda are loving parents, and Bob is not a failure in his mind. Bob loves making gourmet burgers and coming up with these pun names for them, and really enjoys what he does and is proud of it. So he's not this like, I could have been this or I could have been that kind of guy. And the stories are very clever and fun, but they also have a sort of a point to them, a moment to them of let's take a look at what we've done here. And there's a warmth to it. It can be very edgy, it can be naughty, but there is a warmth that I just respond well to. I actually know the creator of the show, Lauren Bouchard, and I told them, since the Flintstones, I don't think there's been a primetime show where you really like these characters. And Linda, who is voiced by is it Mark Roberts? he actually did these videos with Debbie Harry where he was imitating his mother, and it
Mm.
was a Brooklyn character and funny. And my Aunt Sadie talked a lot like Linda. You know, it was, so I think that there's also that feeling of reminds me of an Aunt Sadie cartoon. So
Oh
I
yeah.
do enjoy it. I also love the fact that there is a song in almost every episode, and there have been two compilation albums in addition to the movie soundtrack. There's an eclectic musical approach to it. Sometimes they're very modern sounding. Sometimes they're bizarre novelty things, and it's got a cast of almost all improv actors. I just really enjoy. I really and I like a lot of the recent things. Like I said, it doesn't have to be old. In fact, I just got my son is a much more than a fan. He's a specialist in anime and manga and video games, and he's actually studying to go teach English in Japan in about a
Wow.
year, God
Fabulous.
willing. And he's a specialist in foreign languages. And he said, "You got to watch this thing on Netflix called One Piece. It's based on a manga from the 90s that was made into a anime. But most of the time when they do live action, it loses something and the fans immediately say yuck." He said the fans are raving about this and you guys will really like it. And it's a pretty good show. It's got a lot going for it. And at first I'm like, well, this is what Colin likes, and that's nice. And but I've really gotten into it. So there is quality stuff going. There's still a lot of talent out there. And then the talent needs to get a chance.
That's the thing, exactly. That's definitely the thing, and it's so important because there's a lot of untapped talent out there. What did you
Yes.
think of Art Clokey, the Davy and
Oh,
Goliath, and Gumby and Pokey? I used to love all of those.
I love those, and I actually got to know Dallas McKennon,
Oh,
who
did
was the
you?
voice of Gumby, and I think
Yes.
sometimes he was Goliath, sometimes it was Hal Smith, but Art Clokey, those are so wonderful because they're so handcrafted, they're so handmade. You can see the thumbprints. You can that it's. I mean, I think the stuff that Henry Selick did, and I love the Leica cartoon, the Leica cartoons, the features. The Leica features are phenomenal. They're so, I can't wait. We can never wait for the next one to come out. But there was something about the Clokey stuff. It was just plasticine, just clay, and
Yeah.
some of them were just these free forms where things would turn into things. As a matter of fact, this summer I watched some of the beach movies and had forgotten that Art Clokey did the titles to
Hmm.
some of the Beach Party, and also I think
That's
Fireball
right.
500 and stuff. So he was busy doing PSAs and
PSAs and the
things
whole
like
Davy and
that.
Goliath, and like we said,
Oh
Gumby and
yeah.
Pokey. A lot of the shows, the cartoons, all of it of the day. Also, they had messages. They had a storyline, about for kids, especially, the kids product about friendship and getting
Hmm.
along and respecting one another, and they would use the cartoon or the animation or whatever as the way to foster those good thoughts, those good positive feelings. And that was always something very special. Disney, of course, big with that. All of that, things resolved in the end and everybody getting along. There was a positivity, even if it was something where there's some craziness where they were, the wacky racers, or just where there was bing bang boom, like Batman, boom pow. But still, in the end, there was a storyline that was about getting along and taking care of one another and enjoying the ride, kind of a thing.
Yeah. I think that the way they did it then, first of all, it seems like the messages were, like you said, they were very, very basic. Treat people well, uh, be have some courtesy, respect people who have differences, a lot of those things, and just general living a good life and getting along. And they were very simple messages, and they were always presented in, not always, but most of the time were presented um, in a way that was Walt Disney used to say, he says, I want to educate, but I want to entertain first. Because if you don't entertain, they're not going to watch it and they're not going to get the education. So I think the best ones conveyed that. I used to say that when I would write copy, this was a thing that would happen a lot with advertising. I would be given an assignment and I'd be given the basic information. And sometimes they would want what they called boilerplate, which was the approved way the copy is written. And I would use that, but sometimes I had to write more. So I would either do some research or ask to talk to people, or I would take that, they give you talking points. These are the points. I would never do them verbatim because I knew that they were being used elsewhere. And if you keep hammering the same thing the same way, people stop hearing it or seeing it or reading it. And also, if you come across too advertising-y, you turn people off. So I would inherently put the messages in. And there were great people in marketing who understood what I was doing because I was doing it for them. That's what my job was. There were a few that were like, well, why aren't you saying the exact words? I said, because that's not why I'm helping you. If you could do that, and that's fine. But if you read the paragraphs, all of those points are in there. And I think that's a much more effective way of doing it, is to weave it in and make it organic and make it part of it, rather than that being the priority up front. Because people are, and kids too, are not as gullible as some people think. They do think and they do discern. And when I was a kid, I could smell it a mile away too. So you have to think about, again, who are you talking to and who are they, and think about them before you think about what your goal is yourself,
Exactly. Right. Beautifully said. That is so very, very true. Everybody loving your Jetsons background there, and we dug this up.
Oh, well, that's going to be in the book.
Yes.
I just completed a book about Hanna-Barbera history that tells the entire story from the very beginnings of their careers and their early days all the way up. It's like Tom and Jerry to Tom and Jerry, from the original creation of Tom and Jerry to what you showed earlier, Tom and Jerry, the movie from 2021. I mean, it spans decades and decades, even after we lost Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera, because their influence continues to this day. These characters and these shows are still viable and popular. So that book is coming out next year. And then The Fantastic World of Hanna and Barbera is a podcast that is now, I'm happy to say, it's on iTunes now, and it's on Google, it's on Amazon, and it's on Spotify and iHeart.
Cool.
And it is a weekly interview show where we talk to people who worked for Hanna-Barbera, who were influenced by them, who do the kind of thing, like voice artists do the kind of thing that was done by them. And so some of them relate directly, some indirectly. And it's a celebration because it's a vast and incredible history of entertainment and influence. And so we just want to talk about as many great subjects as we can. And so far, I've got a whole bunch of shows that I'm working on to get on the air, because the interviews have turned out really fun. People enjoy talking about their lives working there. They have wonderful things to say about the projects, and
which is fantastic.
Yeah, and they did a very unique thing that should be seen for what it is and how marvelous it is. And so it's very, very gratifying to be able to help steer folks in that direction. And the records, to me, like I said, that's a Jetsons album we just saw. The records are my connection when the shows weren't on, to listen to them. And they were wonderful, and very little is known about them. So I did an enormous amount of research and talked to a lot of people. And again, this book is going to be one that I think you'll come away saying, wow, I had no idea. Oh, I didn't know.
Hanna-Barbera, the recorded history from modern Stone Age to meddling kids, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, coming out next year from University Press in Mississippi.
So the number of lives that Hanna-Barbera's numerous creations and characters have touched is incalculable and ever increasing. And the creative partnership of Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera and their associates brought forth countless sights to remember. They won 7 Oscars, 2 Emmy Awards, and created the first primetime animated sitcom and the first live action animated series, produced theatrical features, award-winning live action projects. And through all of this, they also developed highly distinctive landmark forms of music and sound. Just some of the ones we've been talking about: Yogi Bear, the Flintstones, Johnny Quest, Scooby-Doo, celebrated also through visual art. This is going to be something really special. When did you start this project on this book?
Well, the book probably, I would say 4 or 5 years ago, even before COVID. There's a wonderful editor, Craig Gill at UPM, and he said that we were talking about what book I would want to do next, and he said, I think we could really go for a Hanna-Barbera book, because I write a regular feature for Jerry Beck, who is probably the most renowned and one of the most renowned animation historians, and it's called Animation Spin, and I write about records based on animation and all different kinds. And they said, let's see from that what we could focus on, and we picked that. And it's like, it occurred to me, it isn't really written about much, and I couldn't even find another regular podcast about it. There were specific episodes, but not a regular podcast. And this is a big subject and a thrilling subject, and there's a lot that isn't said enough about what these guys did, what people work there from the 30s all the way up. They would hire back. Ageism was not an issue there. They would hire back people they knew in the 30s and 40s. They made friends, and they stayed loyal to them. You read the credits of the Smurfs if you're an animation buff, you can't believe the names you're seeing. If you're a TV buff, look at the voices, and you're seeing Rene Auberjonois. I'm not saying it right. You're seeing Alan Young. You're seeing people that were substantial actors doing Smurf. Brenda Vaccaro was a regular on the Smurfs. A lot of really tremendous. Jonathan Harris from Lost in Space. They never skimped on. They had budgetary issues, but when it came to the soundtrack, that was key, because that sustained. That was part of the animation, and that sustained a lot of what they did. And I think the charm of that, even the sound effects, Jetson sound effects, what those cars sound like.
Yeah.
And I talked to the guy who made the sound effects, and he gave me some of the secrets of how he made them. So it was nice to give him some attention.
Some attention for right, exactly. Because it does take a village to do all of these things. Hanna-Barbera, the recordings help launch major names and behind-the-scenes talents in pop, rock, jazz, film music, and the techniques developed at Hanna-Barbera influenced other studios from Hollywood to Broadway, and you document that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it influenced Broadway. It influenced late TV. There's a story in there about that. It's a long range thing, because they were there with us on our TV. Even the costume characters, you didn't have to go to a special place. Usually they'd come to you. They'd come to the mall. They'd come to the community centers and the hospitals. And not that Disney characters didn't, they've always done that, but generally you have to go someplace very special, because the Disney characters are golden. They're very, very they're like the special holidays, whereas the Hanna-Barbera characters are the everydays. They're your buddies. So people grew very, very close to them, and they still do. I mean, the Smurfs alone, 420 episodes. It's an astonishing thing.
Was Magilla Gorilla Hanna-Barbera?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Right.
What a theme song that had.
Yes. Gorilla. Right. Exactly. Huh?
Yeah.
And of course, Underdog wasn't.
No.
Neither was Courageous Cat, which was another one that was. You didn't always see that one. And Felix the Cat, of course, that goes back in time. But Magilla Gorilla, yeah. Just the theme song alone, you could, it was the buildup, you know, you were
I
singing it
remember.
as you were.
Do you remember the Emmy Awards when the Sweeney sisters from Saturday Night Live did a medley of theme songs and
Of
went
all
up
the
to William
different,
Shatner and went ah. At one
right.
point, one of them, I don't know if it was Nora Dunn, it might have, there, or maybe it was no, I can't remember which of the two, but at one point she got very serious and said, "We've got a gorilla for sale,
Mhm.
Nagilla, gorilla for sale. Won't you
Yep.
buy him?" And I thought, this is like, look at where how far it's come.
It's incredible, right? It's absolutely incredible. In the words of John Davidson, that's
That's
incredible.
incredible.
Um, right. I think it's, is it Rudy? Rudy Malone. Welcome to the show, Rudy. If there ever is a reboot for Hanna-Barbera's Laugh Olympics, maybe Greg should be a music consultant for the show.
Wouldn't that be
Laugh,
fun? Laugh
Laugh
Olympics.
Olympics. Some people are
Oh,
asking what that was. Remind our audience about that.
well, that was a descendant of Wacky Races because it also gave that live show feeling to a cartoon, except it combined the Battle of the Network Stars kind of thing. Except the Battle of the Network Stars was generally on a campus somewhere in Southern California. These events would happen all over the world, and it was probably the biggest cast of animated characters in one show, which is pretty ambitious for a series. And the way they premiered it was on Scooby's All-Star Laugh Olympics, and they had a 2-hour block. So they would have one of the games at one section, and then they'd have Scooby cartoons and Dynamite. The blocks were a very big thing on Saturday morning. And then they'd have the other game. So they kept them separate. So you'd wait for them and sit through the block. And it was, I believe, Don Messick was the announcer for that. The original was Dave Willick from the Great American Soup commercial with always in everything. But my favorite is the Great American Soup commercial with Ann Miller that
Oh,
Stan
yes,
Freberg
that's
did.
right. Those are
But
some productions. Yes.
oh, I love that. So Laugh Olympics involved classic Hanna-Barbera characters, Yogi and Boo Boo and Huckleberry Hound and those characters, with the more modern characters like Scooby and Captain Caveman and the Teen Angels and Babu from the Genie cartoon. You mentioned that shows made from live action. And then you
Yes.
had the Really Rottens, which was, I think he was called Mumbly by then, but it was an offshoot of Muttley, and brand new villains. And each week they would compete, and of course the bad guys would cheat, but it was just fun and entertaining, and there were great comic books made of it, and it is something that would be loads of fun to see brought back, because that was one of the things that ABC was doing by the 70s. They were giving these characters, they were reviving them by combining them, and that was just, for me, who grew up seeing the originals, then seeing them come back. I thought it was really cool.
It really was. And again, of a specific time in life that, you know, I think when people, you know, there's a craving for a lot of nostalgia, and what we've gone through recently, you know, with the pandemic, a lot of people have been craving things from their past, things that they have fond thoughts and warm, fuzzy feelings about, which I think is fantastic. Have you noticed that to be the case, that they're craving some of that nostalgia, whether it is the animation, the cartoons, whether it's the TV series, the old movies, just whatever it is, they can't get enough of it.
You're absolutely right. There have been concrete examples of that. People of all ages, you know, they say about demographics and all, but all ages were just seeking out something that was fun and got into it during that period. One of the things was Columbo. Columbo became extremely popular with all ages. I mean, my kids went to college, and their kids were talking about Columbo there. So we actually had at in marketing, we had a presentation by the advertising agency of record that was working with us on some of the things, and they did a study of millennials. And what they came away with was millennials don't really care when something was made. They just like it if it's cool. And their attitude is, we'll drive forward, but look in the rearview mirror. In other words, kids will watch a black and white show. Lucy's still on, Dick Van Dyke's still on, and it doesn't always matter. Yes, color is nice, but it doesn't matter if it's good, and it doesn't matter when it was made if it somehow works for the viewer. And the pandemic not only showed that the audience will start seeking out these things, but the wise administrators of content, as they call it, in large corporations that own these back catalogs, they would do well to reevaluate and market those things. Because if you look at MTV, they're doing what Nick at Night was doing very successfully all over again. All these big companies have libraries that they've maybe decided back in the 90s how valuable the things are. They have to reevaluate it because there is a market, and you can even create a market the way Nick at Night did. They made Donna Reed appealing to those that loved wholesome shows, but also appealing to people who liked camp. You can do that with classic stuff and put it in its context. There is a lot of material that is gravy money that could be brought back out and marketed aggressively and not just pushed into the background because it isn't new. There has to be new because people have to work, you know, and hopefully these strikes will end soon. It's not that there can't be new, but there's no reason why there can't be a little of both, because Disney did that for years. They'd make new things all the time, but they'd also keep reissuing their classics, and they still have their classics. And according to Hollywood Reporter, in 2018 or 2019, more people at that time were watching classic Disney on Disney Plus than any of the other things. So people they're telling you, we like this stuff. This is what
the Wizard of Oz still pops on, right?
The Wizard of Oz is a great example. Do we care that it was 1939? Does it even half the time seem like it? That it was? Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory,
Willy
71.
Wonka, Hans Christian Andersen, with Danny Kaye.
It doesn't matter if it's good. And some stuff gets more contemporary, like Alice in Wonderland. That wasn't well accepted in 51. It was too weird. Alice was very independent and didn't take it from anybody, which was a little bit not what young ladies did in the 50s. Alice is, she's her own person. And Wonderland is nuts, but so is life. And the attitude of that movie is much more timely now, and it's considered a great classic now. So you got to always take a look at what these little niches. I'll mention to you that the editor of Wired magazine wrote a great book called The Long Tail. And the idea behind it, it's difficult to do, but they should be looking into this because everybody needs revenue now. The idea is mass marketing is valid and it's important and it's all great, though we're seeing that it's not as mass as it used to be in any genre and in any market. But the long tail is niches. And even though the niches may not have huge quantities within the niches, if you can locate them and find enough of them, you can make a fortune. And it's never really been embraced on a corporate level as far as I could see. Because I remember when they told us that about millennials, I was over the moon. I'm like, what company could do this better than Disney? And then the long tail, oh my gosh, there's so many niches. We're getting close. I think change is coming. And I think sometimes change does come from just regular people like you and I. And eventually it gets to somebody who has the power to say, yes, that should be done. But I think the public is pretty much making it clear that they want variety. They want new stuff. They want old stuff that's fun. They want stuff that entertains them, that maybe enlightens them. But it doesn't matter when it was done. It if it works. I'm not saying that stuff that isn't right or upsets people. I'm not defending that. I'm just saying that there's a lot of great stuff out there. We just talked about tons of it.
Tons of it. This conversation has made me also very hungry, and for some reason, I love having this year round. I'm a soup person year round. I can have it, winter, I can have it summer. I love soup, but for some reason, Greg, I'm craving soup.
Boy, am I hungry. What kind of soup is that?
Make way for the Great American Soup.
Can you give me that again?
Up at the Ritz, they pass the word to 42nd Street. Make way for the Great American Soup. Hey, mister, have you tried the soup that's good enough to eat? Shake hands with the Great American Soup. Feel that rhythm, guide your feet on the soupy road to romance. Let's face the chicken gumbo and dance. Who's got its noodles up in life from Broadway to the Loop? It's the Great. I said the Great. It's the great, great, great American Soup.
Emily, why do you always have to make such a big production out of everything?
That's got to be my favorite commercial, and I never
They
get
used
tired
to
of.
put so much into a lot of these. I mean, the production value.
Let's face the
so many
chicken
things.
gumbo and dance. that's
Ann
pure,
Miller, the famous Ann Miller, and those
Ann
TV
Miller
commercials.
and
The
Dave
Great
Willick
American-
from Wacky Races.
That's right, the Great American Soup, which
Yeah.
doesn't exist anymore, right? That came and
No,
went.
and you know what? I loved Great American Soup. Stan Freberg did that commercial. Great American Soups were from Heinz, and Heinz was always
That's
sort
right.
of a poor relation to Campbell's. And Great American Soups had bigger chunks in it, and they were more like homemade soups, and they weren't diluted, and they were great American soups. I
Yeah.
think the chunky soup, Camel came along with a bigger can, loads of
Yes.
chunks. You were tempted to eat it with a fork, and I think it just pushed them off the shelf. I don't think Heinz was ever a contender. I don't think it was the soup. I just think it was the power of the Campbell.
TV dinners on Friday nights, Libby's and all the others with the cartoons on the back, the chocolate pudding, all of that was a big thing too.
Mhm. We still love, one of our favorite meals is just plain old hot tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches.
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
comfort food,
That's a good-
especially on a cold day.
That's a terrific combination. Absolutely. Here's something else of your work.
Yeah, that was for a plan, one of the package plans that many different package plans were done, and we had an astonishing group, and there still is an astonishing group in the creative department. You would be given the brief, they would do a fantastic job. This is the Aristocats soundtrack album, and I wrote the liner notes for some of that, and went into detail on who Roby Lester was, who I mentioned earlier, and also the
Yeah.
great Mike Sam singers who appear on the
Oh,
what they call the
yes.
studio cast. I
Yes.
love the Mike Sam, and they sang with everyone in the 60s, every big recording star in Abbey Road Studios.
The Mike Sam singers and the Ron Hicklin singers too, who
Ron
sang
Hicklin, yes.
all those theme songs, and they were the backup. They were the actual singers underneath Shirley Jones and David
Mhm.
Cassidy for the Partridge Family. They were the Monkees singers.
Yeah,
They
Ron
sang
Hicklin
Love
sang
American
next to the Monkees.
Style, Love American Style. All those
They were the
themes.
sound of the late 60s, early 70s. And I interviewed Ron Hicklin for this book.
Oh,
And
did you?
Jackie Ward. Yeah, Jackie Ward was also in the Partridge Family. She
And
sang
they
for,
were in the 70s when
Mhm.
Ray Conniff sort of repositioned his sound and went more contemporary. The Ron Hicklin singers became the new
That's right.
mid to late 70s Ray Conniff singers. So anybody that listens to Ray Conniff's music during the early mid 70s,
Mhm.
it is the Ron Hicklin singers as the Ray Conniff singers with that really fabulous sound.
It was very,
I really
and they
enjoyed
also,
that sound.
the opening to MASH in the movie, they actually got screen credit for the opening to MASH, which I thought was kind of nice because that doesn't happen very often.
That's right.
Vocalists don't always get a screen
No.
credit.
No.
But
They
the Ron
did
Hicklin, and that's
promos,
what's cool is
commercials.
Ron Hicklin was singing with they started out as the Eligibles. There were two or three other guys he sang with, Al Capps, who became an arranger. You'll see his name in a lot of credits, and Stan Farber, and a guy named Bob. I think it was Bob Rolla, and there was another guy. The other guy changed a little bit, but they sang on Hanna-Barbera records in '65, and they sang "We've Got a Gorilla for Sale" and "Peter Potamus," and they were the Impossibles, and they were the Way Outs on the Flintstones. So and then they went on to all through the '80s to sing the theme songs, for the Pebbles and Bam Bam show, and they sped them up for the Smurfs, and they were absolutely everywhere in one combination or another.
There's just a certain sound, that they had, which was it was just, I can't explain what it was, but it just captured the essence of the time, a freshness, a newness, a warmth, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They were even in Disney parks for a while. They were doing pre-records for the vocals in the Disney parks for many, many years. And I always felt like some of those shows felt very Love American stylish, the way so there you go. The way the chorus would be singing and stuff. Little did I know at the time, because he told me he actually had all of his paperwork handy, and he's going through, oh yeah, Yogi's First Christmas, that was us, and Smurfs, that was us, and Charlotte's Web, that was us, and it's an astonishing career. And what he ended up founding and running was, and if you're in production, the Killer Music Library that is ubiquitous in production, and on reality shows, a lot of that stuff comes from their library. It's hundreds of, it used to be discs. Now you just go online and pick, but we use the Killer Music all the time. And that was Ron Hicklin.
It was really incredible, because some of the, working in television and radio myself, the access to the production music that would be sent, that would be used for news themes and shows. And, those are fantastic musicians that are on other well-known artists' albums and things of that nature. And they'd be brought into the sessions to record these various versions of things, at promo music, whatever it is. And that material is fantastic.
Yeah,
a lot of it,
Yeah, those albums they're fun to listen to just on their own. And a lot of the early TV shows like Donna Reed, Leave It to Beaver, those were production needle drops. And then if the producers really liked the theme, they would buy it as an exclusive, and then that would become the theme song. The other thing that would happen is, I'll give you another one. You were talking about Bob Barker. The Truth or Consequences theme was actually called Stopgap, and it was in the KPM library.
That's right, KPM. Yes. A lot of that production music came over from England.
Yep.
Of course. And you had a lot of these incredible Johnny Scott and a lot of these incredible arrangers and conductors who created a lot of instrumental music that was used for TV shows and themes and all kinds of cool stuff. You mentioned the Ron Hicklin singers. They were also used for a lot of television promos for local stations, for network campaigns, for CBS, NBC, ABC, and Bob Klein and his agency, Klein and created, and that's Klein, and then the and sign, like A-N-D, but the and sign, created so much incredible material during this time period we're talking about, 70s, 80s, as did Frank Gehry from Gehry Productions and Communications. He was a singer in the 50s, Frank Gehry, and then he created a lot of the TV network promos and campaigns and stuff we grew up with. But the Hicklin singers, I was talking to Bob Klein, who is in his 90s now, and he, I said, who were the singers you used for some of your promotional campaigns? And there was a particular one that I, remember seeing for a CBS affiliated station, a CBS station in Hartford, Connecticut, which at that time was owned by Post Newsweek stations, Washington Post and Newsweek. And it was WFSB TV Channel 3 in Hartford, Connecticut. And it was the CBS affiliate in that region, Connecticut and Western Massachusetts. And I asked him, the promo was fantastic, really warm and catchy and authoritative, and just really grabs you. But the singers sound so familiar. Who are the singers? And he said the singers I used were the Ron Hicklin singers. And I said, no wonder why. And here it is.
You're here in the land of the free. You're near all the good things to see. The spirit of our times, the beat of our bone times. Make the most of it on WFSB. In the land of the three. Three cheers. In the land of the free, we're living in close harmony. The beat of the city, the country so pretty. See the best of it on WFSB. In the land of the free. In the land of the free.
That is so
Kind of cool, huh?
That is so cool. We mentioned Sid and Marty Krofft earlier, the Puff and Stuff movie soundtrack. That is like the best of Charles Fox and the best of the Ron Hicklin singers in one, because boy, if you haven't heard that album, whether you see the movie or not, which is charming, but the soundtrack is it's so 70s. It just, everything Charles Fox did is kind of for 30 minutes on that album. I love it.
Charles Fox, yes. And I think he's involved in a documentary celebrating his life. I'd love to get him on the show. And we're talking about some of these names that you're talking about, Ron Hicklin, I would love to get him on the show, show him something like that. But Charles Fox too, I mean, so many incredible, iconic pieces of music, theme songs to the beloved shows that he created. He is extraordinary. Love Boat. I mean,
Love Boat, Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days, Wonder Woman.
Created all those themes, Charles Fox. It's extraordinary stuff, isn't it?
And then do
you feel like you're a kid in a sandbox right now, and you've come over to play, and then your mother's going to call, Greg, it's dinner time.
Yeah,
I'm over at Jimmy's.
I have a very patient wife who after I proposed to her, I said, you're marrying the Archies and the Chipmunks and Mickey Mouse and
You're
Charlie Brown, and you're going to get all this. You do know this,
Well, you're the son of Taffy.
And I am son of Taffy, which sounds like a Saturday night late horror movie.
And don't tell me that your dad's nickname was Daffy.
No. But you know what? He went to Bishop Stepanak High School in New York, and Alan Alda was a schoolmate of his, and he used to call him and Alan Alda called him Ha. So that was the closest he got to a nickname.
This is incredible. Really, really is. We got to throw this in too.
Oh, that was fun too. That was something that I actually got to do a drawn out layout for, because they said we need to have something that is like a keepsake memory book kind of log for people to come on vacation. And my model for it was, remember those school day memories books where you'd put you put your report card in and photos of your friends and your school photo, and you'd write down your classes and stuff. So I decided let's make it like 4 parts, because you could come on 4 different times. The kids would be different ages, and you'd see how things changed each time. And I actually drew out what each of the layouts would be. And then of course the art, that's the thing, is you to be an art director or do concept stuff, you don't necessarily have to draw elaborately. You just have to convey it to the people who really know how to do the illustrations. And they made one for Disneyland and for Walt Disney World.
That's incredible. And what about this?
That is, what is that? it's teeny tiny on my screen. Oh, Dreamers and Doers Awards.
Dreamers and Doers.
That was another public service thing. Dreamers and Doers Awards are given to people, young people and all that do extraordinary things. I also I did things for the back when they had the Academy of Arts and Sciences. They would have a dinner. In fact, Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera were honored at Disney World because they were added to the Hall of Fame, and there was a plaque with their name on it at Disney's Hollywood Studios. And so I would do like the invitations and the pieces for that. There was also the Teacherific Awards. So that I came up with that. That was 2 words stuck together.
Teacherific. Well, you said ginormous
awards
earlier too, so
I did say ginormous. Yeah. I try to come up with something different. You know, there are allowed. Fantastic. Well, that's Hanna-Barbera's word. We sort of
that's theirs.
And from the late 60s, they used it for a series and also for like that was their sort of campaign at the time. And I thought it was a nice way to sort of do a little throwback to that, because I just thought it worked so beautifully. They used to have a Sunday morning. Yeah, there's Tom and Jerry the movie, which did an interview with the composer of that film, Christopher Lennertz. And he told me a really cool story about how he became a composer and how much Tom and Jerry had to do with that.
Really?
And that kind of is the button on the whole book, because it's Tom and Jerry originally and it's Tom and Jerry here. This movie was a substantial success, and we still had the pandemic. And meanwhile, people were starting to venture out in the theaters, but Warner was also making it available to HBO Max subscribers. And people still sometimes would go to the theaters and they went to see this, and it did very, very well, which is just a tribute to the staying power of these characters.
Absolutely. And this, of course, we showed, which is still something I know really near and dear to your heart. And this too.
Oh, yeah. Now that's another odd thing, because that's a read along that also Disney made under universal license for a Hanna-Barbera product. So that's probably the only instance of that. And so I did the script for this and used dialogue from the film. This is the second Flintstones live action feature, and got to, and they, for the page turning signal, they used an actual Hanna-Barbera sound effect. So it's the only time that happened. I mean, where the companies kind of melded. There have been other instances in the film The Boys, the Sherman Brothers story. There's a clip from Charlotte's Web, and that is a Disney release. And in the last Incredibles 2, there's a clip from Johnny Quest, because that had a huge influence on Brad Bird.
That is so cool. What a great story. Here's another.
Oh, yeah. Enjoy Florida were those magazines that if you went to like Denny's, these magazines that were combinations,
or Waffle House.
Oh yeah, Waffle House, and Perkins, which is no longer there. We really
Perkins. I used to love their meatloaf.
Yeah, and so these would be there, and Disney would get a certain amount of pages, and you had to stay in a certain amount of things, and we'd put whatever the newest attractions were, and then some of the old favorites and that kind of thing. That you just never knew. There were big jobs, there were small jobs, but I didn't care, because I just liked doing it. And sometimes a big job, there'd be a lot of pressure on, because there'd be a lot of people involved, and a small job would be very relaxing and somewhat restful after a very big deal job. So just doing a brochure like that could be actually a breath of fresh air. So I didn't mind at all.
Addy-winning, 2-time Grammy-nominated as a result of all of this work. Just some of the accolades for job well done and continuing to be. What are some of the blessings and joys about it all that you love, that continue to foster your passion, creativity, and excitement for what you do, Greg?
You have to have sort of a purpose, I think, to keep, you have to have goals and purposes. You never stop doing that. This last book, I think, like I said, I felt like, and my wife too, she said, you need to do this. And I knew I did. And she said, you're in a unique position to tell the story because you know these records so well. I mean, you know the history and you've studied it, and what you didn't know, you found out, but you know this material. And this is something you've got to do. So that gave me having that sense of purpose, knowing that it'll have an impact in some way, even in a small way or a big way, is, I think, a great part of it. And I feel very, very blessed to have been part of, and I still do freelance for Disney, but when I was on staff, it was an incredible period of growth and excitement, and parks were popping up and hotels were popping up, and these fantastic movies that were coming out, Lion King and Tarzan and Aladdin, and it was unbelievable how exciting the atmosphere was, and how you didn't know one day to the next. The work was hard, the hours were crazy. You'd have to, you'd be on your vacation, you'd get a phone call, can you get away? Barbie just came out. We had Barbie at Epcot, and I actually met Barbie and drove her in my car for a radio project. Barbie had a big show at Epcot, and we worked on promos for it, and we went, it was all through the night, and you just do it.
Shouldn't Barbie have driven you in her car? Is that usually how
No. I drove
the Barbie mobile.
Well, they had a Barbie mobile there, but what we were doing was a radio thing, and we were pretending that we were interviewing Barbie in her Barbie mobile, but really it was my Chevy Cavalier. But because it was radio, you couldn't tell.
Right?
Barbie was talking about her busy day and how she takes a bubble bath, and then she thinks about what she's going to do, and then then it says, oh, we're driving up to we had an actor, Dennis Marsico, doing the interview, and he was a great improv actor, still is, and he says, oh, we're approaching the Barbie dream house. Look, it's all plastic, and that's what's great about audio, is you could do that. And he said, who's that out there mowing the lawn? Is that Ken? And she says, no, I think that's Skipper. So it was really fun to do that, because just like the movie, you can have fun with what Barbie is. Barbie's a delightful, and there was a comic book based on her adventures at Disney there, and she had a big spectacular show at Epcot. And because of Barbie, the America Gardens Theater was built. It was built by Barbie. Because before it had no roof, and they would have to cancel shows because if the weather was too unsafe, either for slippage or for lightning, they'd cancel the show and hundreds of people would be turned away. But thanks to Barbie, they built this solid structure. So she's got some history there too.
Really incredible. This whole experience together, Greg, has been incredible. We went down memory lane, also talked about current projects and our passions and our thirst for creativity and all of this, from television and film and stage and advertising and commercials and all of these different things, and touched upon various different decades and generations from past, present to future. This was really cool. And I know we felt like two kids. I say, well, basically we are all kids.
We're kids inside.
We're kids inside. We're kids wearing adult clothing. That's basically all it is. Hey, I still have all my Matchbox cars, my baseball cards. I still have all of those things. I hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as definitely. I have with you, Greg.
Thank you so much. This has been so fun, and I appreciate your I love the fact that a lot of the references that I make, and that you are so knowledgeable. This has been just a blast. I really appreciate being on your show.
Pleasure is all mine, and I hope it met whatever expectations, and that you will definitely come back and visit us here at JMS Levity Hall, and you'll spread the word about our show. If you know other folks you think would like to pop on, and everybody tells everybody, as you know, and it was really just a terrific conversation, and some great comments coming in from our Levity viewers. Cheyenne Smith, thanks for being here as well. You always have the most interesting interviews, Jim. People most maybe never heard or never would bring to life in real time on your channel. This man, Greg, one of them. Thanks for this. Learned something about you, Greg. Jane watching in Sweden, same thing. We appreciate her watching. And Crystal watching in Connecticut. Amazing stories. Thanks for sharing them. Kathleen in New York City. thank you. Enjoyed the fun conversation, or the fantastic conversation. Merlin in Canada. These are some of our regular who like to post in our Levity Hall chat room. Thank you to Merlin as well. And again, Crystal and Maureen in Arizona. Such a fun conversation. Great to remember all the great entertainment we had growing up. Thank you so much for being with us as Jim's special guest. Greg, all the best to you as well. Just a few
It's
of
so
the
nice.
many,
That's
many,
really
many
nice.
thousands watching live, and who'll be watching this Memorex, as I say, archived, right? Is it live or is it Memorex? This will be archived on our YouTube channel, folks, in full, with almost 1,000. We're like 4 shows away from 1,000 episodes, which is
Wow.
unbelievable in a short period of time. And as Greg knows, you know, that usually 1,000 episodes, if anything, a lot of series never make it to even 100 or 500 episodes, right?
Yeah.
And we've done almost 1,000, which is
Wow.
really incredible.
You know, I think only Dark Shadows is the only one I can think of. There's like 1,225 of those. So
that's
you're getting
right.
close to Barnabas
We're
numbers.
getting to become Dark Shadow soon. Well, this was awesome, my friend, and hopefully we'll be in the same zip code, and we'll break bread and chat some more. Keep me apprised of everything going on. There is, of course, a website. People can check out all the cool things Greg has done, he's doing, things coming up as well. You're the best, Greg. Thanks for stopping by the Jim Masters Show.
Thank you. So
really
are you.
appreciate it. Kathy
Thank you very
Matthews,
much.
good to see you as well.
Oh,
Great
thank you,
interview.
Kathy.
Some deep dives for sure. Thank you both. The pleasure is all ours, Kathy, and I hope you'll stop by the Jim Masters Show live again to join us. You be well, my friend, and thanks for the good times and the great memories and all the extraordinary work you've done and continue to do all these years, Greg.
You're very kind. Thank you very much, Jim.
I appreciate that.
And thanks to everybody who watched and listened and said stuff.
Yes, live. And again, you can see this again in the archives at Jim Masters TV. Don't forget to give it a like, drop a comment, leave a comment on our YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. And Greg, as I say, my father told me this when I was like 7, 8 years old, and still, you know, he sticks with this today, and it is something that sticks with you. Great wisdom given to a kid at an early age. Jim, whenever anybody says something kind or nice to you, ask them to please put it in writing and address it management.
You know what I do, and this is a thing. I always, when I call a customer service and get human beings and they say this call could be monitored, sometimes I sing the theme from the Flintstones to like brighten the day. Yes, but almost always I will tell the monitors that I appreciate that this company is employing humans, that if you'll notice, this human being could solve my problem in seconds, whereas your electric voices couldn't. And so, you know, you will continue being successful if you have good people like this. It means a lot to those people because, you know, when they call, they get yelled at. So I always try to be real nice to them.
I'd like to know what companies you're calling where you are finding live people.
Well, you know, sometimes you go, speak to agent. Speak to agent.
Oh,
Speak to agent.
Right. Don't you love when you get customer service and you go through the whole description of whatever's happening with your cable box or whatever it is? You go through the whole thing. They say they're taking the notes and they say, okay, I have to now connect you with our supervisor who can take a deep dive in whatever the problem is. So they put you on hold. I've got all the information here. I've taken notes. I'm going to send you now to the next level. You're excited. You're now making it to the next level. Next level picks up and says, hi, what's your name? What's the address? You know, what's your mother's maiden name? Whatever. And like, wait, I just said all that. The last 20 minutes I was on the line with Thelma. What? Oh, well, she didn't forward me that information. What is the issue you're having today? And then you go through like 7 other people, and every other person is supposed to be more advanced in the situation, whatever the issue is, than the other one. And it's just a circle. And then they toss you off to somebody else and the call drops after you're on for an hour.
Yeah, Well, you know, some places will say, is this like Apple? They will say, is this a number we can reach you at if this call is disconnected, which I admire. I think that's
I love
nice.
that.
Yeah.
Carla, good to see you. Carla, longtime Jim Master Show Levity viewer. She's watching from Brazil. Greetings from
Wow.
Brazil. Awesome night. Awesome when you're here, Carla. We love you, Carla. So good to see you. And Kathleen, thank you very much in New York City for doing a super sticker, supporting our show in the nice blue color. We appreciate that as well. Jen Berry in Pennsylvania says, Greg, come back soon. Love you as you. Is there another you, Greg?
I don't know. Isn't that a song? There'll never be another you.
That's it, exactly. He's going to go back into his saucer and fly with the robot.
Yeah, my little
back
bubble
into
car.
his condo there, the one with the red. I want to know who does the windows, the robot? I hope so.
I think so, or
Henry.
Henry, and he has that Mac, who's his assistant, who Rosie was in love. Rosie, you know.
Exactly right. That's funny. This was a great night, my friend.
Thank you. I had a great time, and I'm very, very grateful. Thanks for having me on the show.
You are very welcome, and we will chat again real soon. Spread the word, and we shall do the same. And again, definitely stay in touch. I want to hear about the other cool things. And when the other book comes out, we'll have to have you come back and maybe bring some friends with you, and we'll celebrate the book.
I would love that. That's a terrific idea. I'll definitely look into that. And I'll also look into finding some other people you may want to have on and drop you notes.
That's perfect, my friend. I appreciate that. You be well, and thanks for all of the time. We chatted 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Well, I some people find that annoying about me, but I'm glad that you're grateful and that the listeners are because I can talk.
Yeah,
I can factually talk.
Well, it's par for the course, Greg. You have two people who were born and initially raised in New York.
Yes.
Have you ever met a New Yorker that can't talk?
No,
not yet.
No.
Wherever you
Very
go
verbal.
around the world, I've gone to some of the most remote places, and there will always be somebody from the New York area there. It's so amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is a unique thing. Very verbal, very, very demonstrative.
Expressive.
But but a lot of wonderful people, and I think that whole, again, the sometimes things get stereotyped because not everybody in New York City is rude, and a lot of people
there,
being direct and being straightforward, isn't the same thing as being rude. If it's done in a way, there's a lot of warmth, and a lot of good people everywhere. Everything is beautiful in its own way.
What a great title for a song. And as Carol Burnett did, I'm so glad we had this time together.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks again. This is like a Jewish goodbye, isn't it? It goes on and on.
What's Laurel and Hardy? Goodbye.
Goodbye. So what we do, Greg, is we don't say goodbye. We say, see you later.
See you real soon.
All right. You be well, my friend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye now. Wasn't that cool? Wasn't that a lot of fun? Oh, boy. Greg is the best. And, boy, we went through a lot of nostalgic material, great conversation, bringing back some terrific things from the cartoon world, animation, music, Disney, Warner, Universal, Hanna-Barbera. He's got that fabulous book that's coming out celebrating Hanna-Barbera, known for all those great cartoons and more. Yogi Berra. When you see a fork in the road, take it. That's Yogi Berra. Yogi Bear. Now we're thinking sports. And Johnny Quest and Miguel Gorilla and all of them. I hope you enjoyed it, because we went down memory lane on so many different levels, and we got a chance to chat with somebody who has been in the thick of it, creating so much great material for all of us over the years and decades working with Disney. How cool was that? Animation, publications, advertising, the musical part, music as well over the years. Yeah, Greg is really something special, and it was really cool to have him here. And again, from Tom and Jerry to Disney to all of it, really cool stuff. 2-time Grammy-nominated, Addy-winning writer, producer, and so much more. And we got a chance to learn about him. Somebody that maybe you didn't know of him, behind the scenes a little bit. But now you know the contributions he's made to entertainment and creativity for the benefit of all of us, and continues to do so today. Cool stuff. Gang, if you enjoyed this, thanks so very much. We really appreciate it. And really, really fantastic and good stuff. And yeah, thank you very much, Carla. Always following you, Mr. Levity. Thank you, Carla, watching in Brazil. Love having you here. Boy, do we have some amazing guests that are coming up throughout the rest of the week. Wow. Take a look at our YouTube channel. And then this weekend, we're going to be celebrating. I will be away. We're going to be celebrating a birthday. Yeah, a birthday coming up. Boy, it seems like I just had one a year ago. And that comes up on Sunday, this Sunday, the 24th. Thanks to Greg, and thanks to all of you for watching the Jim Masters Show Live Entertainment Lifestyle Celebrity Talk Show Series. Don't forget to give this episode a like. There's a big like button on the YouTube channel. Click that like. Maybe it's not as sparkly and fancy as this one. Click it. Thumbs up. Make sure you click the thumbs up. Leave a comment for us. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. That is where all of the episodes are. And there's almost 1,000. And when you subscribe to the channel, we thank you very much. Big time. And you're part of the Jim Masters Show Levity Squad, Levity family. And we really appreciate that. Rudy says, thanks, Jim. The pleasure is mine. Rudy, thank you, Kathleen. And again, thank you for that super sticker. Very generous of you as well. And oh, thank you. You didn't even have to do that. Sending a birthday gift, Kathleen. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. One of the great birthday gifts is having all of you watch and spread the word and continue to enjoy the Jim Masters Show Live series. So for all of us here, I am your host, Jim Masters, thanking you and you and you and you for your time this time till next time. As we say, we don't say goodbye around here. We just say, see you later. Be well. Join us again on the next episode. There are so many incredible episodes that are coming up. Thanks, Crystal. Glad you enjoyed this episode watching from Connecticut. And Jen watching from Pennsylvania, thank you as well. And Maureen, thank you as well. We appreciate it. And some of the early birthday wishes, we thank you as well. We will see you on the next episode. I'll be right here waiting for you. And we love having you here. Thanks for all the cards. Thanks for all of the emails. Thanks for all the tweets, Instagram messages, Facebook posts. Thanks for sharing the links to our episodes on your social media and whatever you're doing to support and celebrate what we do. And as Rudy says, that's all, folks. And it is. We'll see you on the next episode of the Jim Masters Show Live. Love you all. Take care and be well. And cheers.